stuff up in this area of the car. The long wheelbase. Why does everybody say they're so long? It's all about weight transfer and leverage, making these cars stable. The 300-inch long wheelbase is how long we can maximally go on these cars. So you take it to 300 inches and work within that, but you make a nice balance, and the weight transfers to the rear to give you extra traction. You still need that long nose to keep the front end on the ground because you're accelerating so hard. If you didn't have weight out on the front, the car's going to flip over backwards. So you need a long wheelbase car to keep some weight on the front, keep this thing accelerating in a straight line. Up and through this part of the car, there's not much in it. It's just bars and the framework of the car. If you move up front, you'll see a big fuel tank. We burn a lot of nitromethane as we go down the track. As I said, 80 gallons a minute go through this engine going down the racetrack. So in a quarter of a mile run, we'll burn probably 12 to 13 gallons, depending on how big a burnout we do. You need a big tank. This tank here is 15 gallons. We need a couple gallons extra reserve just so we don't get air through the lines and cause the engine damage. So you have a little bit of reserve. Plus, we also use the fuel as weight to keep the front end down. If you set on the starting line too long, you burn too much fuel, that makes the front end lighter, and when you take off, it wants to carry the front end. So if you have a time set when you're running, you don't want to go too long and burn too much fuel, taking extra weight off your front end. It can really mess things up when you leave the starting line. If you're a little light, you got to get hairy as a driver. That's when you carry the front end. Also, we have a big front wing. This car, as it goes down track, you still have to be able to drive it. Putting all that pressure down in the back with the rear wing, you still have to be able to turn the steering wheel and make corrections to go down the racetrack. So you need a front wing to keep these front tires firmly planted on the ground as you're accelerating down there so you can steer it. When the car starts to make a move one way or the other, you need to be able to make a correction in the cockpit of the steering wheel. And in order to do that, you need some downforce in the front as well as the rear. So you got a front wing pulling on the front end down, you have a rear wing pulling on the back, pulling the back end down, and the chassis will actually bow up in the middle. You have one on the front and one on the rear. The car is actually bent in the middle and actually lift at 3 inches off the ground when you leave the starting line. But in the middle of the run, the car is actually 4, 5, 6 inches off the ground in the middle of the car because it's bowed up, all that downforce. But that's what keeps it hooked up to the racetrack and keeps it accelerating.